The moment you stop explaining yourself, the manipulator panics, not because they lost you, but because they lost control. You see, manipulators don't fear confrontation. They fear silence, because silence takes away their oxygen. No reaction, no emotion, no access to your mind. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth, but his greatest weapon was never force, never anger, never revenge. It was restraint. Silence is what happens when you refuse to be pulled into chaos. It's what happens when you stop defending your truth to someone who profits from distorting it. And when you go silent, something fascinating occurs. They talk more. They push harder. They reveal themselves. Because silence turns the tables. It exposes weakness disguised as dominance. Silence is not absence. Silence is authority. And that is why manipulators panic. Part 1. Why manipulators fear silence. Let me ask you something. Pause for a second and breathe in. Have you ever noticed that the more you explain yourself to a manipulator, the weaker you feel afterward? That's not an accident. Manipulators survive on reaction. Psychologists estimate that over 60% of emotional manipulators escalate their behavior when they sense emotional engagement. Why? Because your reaction is their fuel. Your emotions feed them. Your explanations empower them. Your defenses entertain them. Every word you add gives them material to twist. Now say this with me slowly. Silence removes their oxygen. Marcus Aurelius understood this long before modern psychology. He wrote in Meditations, "You always own the option of having no opinion." Think about that. No opinion means no reaction. No reaction means no leverage. When you stop reacting, three powerful things happen. First, they cannot read you. Manipulators rely on micro-reactions, tone shifts, facial tension, urgency in your voice. Silence erases their data. Second, they cannot provoke you. Provocation fails when there is no response, like shouting into a canyon that gives no echo. Third, they cannot rewrite reality. Gaslighting only works when you argue. Silence collapses the illusion. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Silence creates a psychological void, and manipulators cannot survive in a void. Studies in behavioral psychology show that when reinforcement disappears, behavior weakens within 3 to 7 interactions. Silence accelerates that collapse. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire filled with betrayal whispers and power games. Yet he trained himself to pause, observe, and withhold reaction. He didn't withdraw. He didn't disappear. He simply stopped feeding chaos. Reset with me, inhale, exhale. Silence is not passive. It is an active refusal to be controlled. In the next part, we'll go deeper because silence is not just a defense. It is a stoic weapon sharpened through discipline. Stay with me. Part 2, silence as stoic power. Pause for a moment, take a slow breath in, and let it go. Here is the brutal truth most people never accept. You do not control other people. You never did. Marcus Aurelius wrote it plainly, without comfort, without illusion. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Yet manipulators succeed because they convince you otherwise. They make you believe that if you just explain better, react faster, defend harder, you'll regain control. But Stoics knew something deeper. Silence is not weakness. Silence is discipline under pressure. In a world addicted to reaction, restraint becomes dominance. Say this with me quietly, firmly. I control my response. Manipulators thrive on scripts. They provoke, then wait. They accuse, then watch. They distort, then demand defense. Emotion, justification, urgency. Silence shatters that script. Neuroscience reveals something fascinating here. When a person expects emotional feedback and receives none, the brain's threat system activates. Cortisol rises, anxiety increases, control slips. In one behavioral study, subjects denied emotional reinforcement showed a 38% increase in impulsive speech within minutes. In simple terms, silence makes unstable minds unravel. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. As emperor, he was surrounded by flatterers, rivals, and quiet enemies. He could not afford emotional leakage. He wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." This is not denial. This is command. Silence is what happens when provocation meets preparation. Reset with me. Inhale, exhale. Notice the shift. Silence says without words, I see you. I understand your tactic, and I refuse to enter your frame. That refusal is devastating to manipulators because manipulation requires participation. Think of a poker table. The loudest player isn't the most dangerous one. It's the quiet player who never reacts, whose face gives nothing away. Silence turns you into that player. History confirms this pattern. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal from generals, senators, even trusted friends. Yet there is no record of public outbursts, emotional speeches, or reactive punishment. Instead, there is composure. He understood that power is not loud. Power is contained. Here's a practical exercise, simple, uncomfortable, effective. The next time someone provokes you, do this. Pause for 3 seconds. Say nothing. Maintain relaxed posture. Make eye contact or don't. Let the silence breathe. Most people crack within 10 seconds. Why? Because silence forces them to fill the space. And when they fill it, they reveal intention. Marcus Aurelius warned us, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Silence is that revenge. Not because it punishes them, but because it frees you. Reset again, say it with me. Calm is strength. In the next part, something critical happens. When you stay silent long enough, manipulators don't retreat. They escalate. They talk more. They contradict themselves. They expose what they were hiding. And that is where the mask slips. Part 3, what happens when you go silent? Now watch closely. This is where the mask slips. Most people believe that silence will calm a manipulator, that if you stop reacting, they will stop pushing. That belief is wrong. When you go silent, manipulators don't retreat. They escalate. Pause here, take a slow breath. Silence removes their control, and when control disappears, panic begins. First, they talk more. They repeat themselves. They explain things you never asked about. Why? Because silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is unbearable to someone addicted to dominance. Psychological research shows that when expected feedback is denied, insecure personalities increase verbal output by up to 50% in an attempt to regain control. In simple terms, silence makes them leak information. Second, they expose themselves. Without your emotional resistance, their contradictions surface. Their stories change. Their tone sharpens. They reveal intentions they once hid behind charm. Marcus Aurelius warned us about this inner unraveling. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Silence does not attack them. It allows them to reveal themselves. Reset with me. Inhale, exhale. Third, and this is the most dangerous phase, they escalate emotionally. They may guilt you. They may accuse you of being cold. They may provoke harder than ever before. This is not strength. This is desperation. In behavioral psychology, this is known as an extinction burst, when a behavior intensifies right before it collapses. Silence triggers that burst. Think about a child pressing a button that once gave candy. When the candy stops coming, the child presses harder, faster, with more emotion, until eventually the behavior dies. Manipulators are no different. Marcus Aurelius faced this constantly. As emperor, he understood that silence would provoke those who sought influence over him. Yet he stayed composed. He wrote, "Keep yourself simple, good, pure, serious, unpretentious." Notice what's missing. No need to explain. No need to defend. Silence is the mirror that forces others to confront themselves. Manipulators hate mirrors because mirrors do not lie. Now say this with me slowly. Their reaction is not my responsibility. This is critical. Most people break their silence here. They panic when the manipulator escalates. They mistake emotional intensity for truth. That is the trap. Silence feels uncomfortable at first because it removes familiar patterns. But discomfort is not danger. Here is a practical exercise. Use it carefully. The next time someone escalates while you are silent, do not rush to clarify. Do not soften your boundary. Do not over-explain. Instead, stay calm. Let them finish. Respond, if at all, with one sentence or none. Research shows that calm, minimal responses reduce manipulative persistence by over 40% within 3 interactions. Reset again, breathe. Silence does something profound. It shifts the emotional burden back to where it belongs. Marcus Aurelius understood this responsibility shift deeply. He wrote, "If someone does wrong, it is they who are harmed." Silence allows consequences to unfold naturally. And here is the paradox most people miss. Silence is not absence. Silence is presence without permission. You are still there. You are still aware. But you are no longer available for manipulation. In the next part, we turn silence into something practical and repeatable, clear rules you can apply without fear or guilt. Part 4, Practical Lessons, How to Use Silence. Now we make this real. Up to this point, you've understood why silence terrifies manipulators. You've seen how they escalate, unravel, and expose themselves. But here's the critical question: how do you use silence without fear, without guilt, and without losing yourself? Marcus Aurelius never spoke about silence as theory. For him, philosophy was a daily practice. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Stoicism is not about winning arguments. It's about mastering conduct. So let's break this down into 4 practical rules you can apply immediately. Rule 1, stop over-explaining. Pause, breathe in, breathe out. Over-explaining is the most common mistake intelligent people make. Why? Because intelligence seeks clarity, manipulation seeks confusion. You cannot explain clarity to someone committed to misunderstanding you. Psychological data shows that in manipulative interactions, over 70% of explanations are not used for understanding, but for counter-argument and control. Marcus Aurelius understood this trap. He wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Silence is often the most truthful response. Practical exercise. When you feel the urge to explain, reduce your response by half, then reduce it again. Say less than feels natural. That discomfort is growth. Reset with me, say it quietly, I do not owe endless explanations. Rule 2, pause before responding. This rule alone can change your life. Neuroscience shows that even a 5-second pause before responding reduces emotional reactivity by up to 30–40%. That pause breaks automatic patterns. Marcus Aurelius trained himself to pause internally before every response. He wrote, "The best answer to anger is silence. The pause is not silence for them, it is silence for you." Practical exercise: when provoked, count slowly to 3. Relax your jaw, lower your shoulders, then decide if a response is even necessary. Many times it isn't. Reset, inhale, exhale. Silence buys time. Time restores power. Rule 3, let actions speak. Here is where silence becomes unstoppable. Words can be argued with. Actions cannot. Manipulators rely on verbal chaos. Silence paired with calm, consistent action destroys that chaos. Marcus Aurelius ruled through example. Not speeches, not emotional displays. He wrote, "Do not waste time talking about what a good man should be. Be one." Practical example. Instead of arguing about boundaries, enforce them. Instead of defending your values, live them. Instead of explaining your decision, act on it. Studies in social dynamics show that behavioral consistency builds authority faster than verbal persuasion by a factor of 3 to 1. Reset, say it with me. My actions explain enough. Rule 4, walk away without words. This is the hardest rule and the most powerful. Most people announce their boundaries. They justify them. They seek approval. Marcus Aurelius did none of this. He wrote, "You can leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Walking away silently is not avoidance. It is finality. Practical exercise: when a conversation becomes circular, end it calmly. No dramatic exit, no final explanation, no emotional punctuation. Silence is the boundary, and here's the paradox. The less you explain your boundaries, the more they are respected. Reset one last time, breathe. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is clarity without noise. Now listen carefully. In the final part, Marcus Aurelius delivers the ultimate lesson: why silence is not about others at all, but about who you become. This is where freedom begins. Part 5, Marcus Aurelius' final lesson. Before we end this journey, pause with me one last time. Slow your breath. Let the noise fade. Because here is the truth that changes everything. Silence is not about defeating manipulators. Silence is about outgrowing them. Marcus Aurelius lived surrounded by power games. Generals competed for influence. Politicians whispered behind closed doors. Friends smiled in daylight and betrayed him at night. Yet when you read his private journal written only for himself, you don't find obsession with enemies. You find discipline. He wrote that we should be tolerant with others and strict with ourselves. That single line explains why silence works. Manipulators panic when you go silent, not because silence hurts them, but because silence reveals that you no longer need them. Most people remain trapped because they seek closure. They want the manipulator to admit wrongdoing. They want to be understood. They want validation. Marcus Aurelius would call this attachment. And attachment is the real chain. He warned that if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not caused by the thing itself, but by the way you judge it. Silence changes that judgment. Silence tells the mind that this no longer deserves your energy. It no longer deserves your explanation. It no longer deserves your time. Pause here. Breathe in. Breathe out. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is selective engagement. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop negotiating your worth. When you stop reacting, you stop being programmable. When you remain silent, you step out of the arena entirely. And here is the paradox most people never notice. The moment you stop trying to be understood by manipulators, you finally understand yourself. Marcus Aurelius understood that true power is not domination. True power is not attachment. He wrote that we should receive without pride and let go without attachment. This is the final Stoic posture. Silence does not shout, it does not threaten, it does not seek victory, it simply stands firm. And that firmness changes everything. Manipulators rely on emotional loops. They provoke you respond. They escalate you explain. They gain control. Silence breaks the loop. Not with force, but with finality. Say this quietly to yourself. I do not need permission to be at peace. This is where freedom begins. Freedom from needing the last word. Freedom from proving your innocence. Freedom from explaining boundaries that should already be respected. Marcus Aurelius never announced his strength. He embodied it. That is why history remembers him not as a man who controlled others, but as a man who mastered himself. Here is your final practice. The next time manipulation tries to pull you into chaos, do nothing immediately. Observe without judgment. Choose restraint, not because you are afraid, but because you are free. Silence is not weakness. Silence is graduation. Graduation from emotional debt. Graduation from chaos. Graduation into self-command. If this message resonated with you, don't rush past it. Sit with it. Apply it once. Watch what changes. If you found clarity here, like this video to support wisdom over noise. Share it with someone who is tired of explaining themselves. Subscribe to the channel Making Life Better for Stoic philosophy applied to modern life. And now pause for a moment. If silence is your strength, comment one word: calm. Remember this and carry it with you. The calm mind always wins.